Hey everyone, Realism here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins where I take you through my art journey. Okay, so if you remember from last episode, I was working on this whole thing of convex curves against concave curves, and trying to make sure there are no straight lines anywhere. And so here I'm doing some figure drawings, 90 seconds, and trying to implement that, trying to make sure there's no super straight lines anywhere. This is just a big, I guess, disaster. I don't know. I don't like it much. Now I realized that was helping. So I decided to do more figure drawing and try to incorporate figure drawing in general as more of a regular thing. Maybe not every day, but every few days. I wanted to just, make sure I was doing some figure drawing to just be better with the fundamentals. One of the things it gives is that when you do figure drawing, you get warmed up, which is very good. But otherwise, you learn how to create bodies from imagination, especially if you know basic anatomy. Then observing it so many times, you kind of see patterns, and then that helps when you want to create stuff from your own imagination. So here I'm working on, again, more kind of clean stuff, but really keeping in mind the curves and trying to make interesting shapes. It feels to me it feels a bit stiff and a bit forced, but I think it's okay to go through that, and I think it's very important in a way to let yourself have bad days, or even just take the hit where you're working on something and suddenly your work becomes stiff, or maybe it's out of proportion or out of perspective because you're working on some other topic. Like maybe you're working on perspective a lot and then your work becomes very stiff. That's kind of expected. Or if you're working on gestural stuff and then your things become kind of out of perspective. It's definitely important to have both, the correctness and the energy and stuff. But when you're learning, often things fly out the window, and for me they do probably more than most. What did I write here? So at this point, my glasses were really not doing, like, I couldn't see in the distance well. I hadn't had my prescription changed in a very long time, so I went to the optometrist, and then he gave me new glasses, but they were a bit too strong, so I was developing very severe headaches and eye strain, and it really hurt to focus on anything, so drawing became actually kind of painful. So that sucked. Back to some more figure drawing. I'll just quickly go through them. Can't say there's anything really noteworthy there. And then here I was trying to work on the proportions as well, keeping like big hands, big heads, skinny arms, that kind of proportion, kind of mixing the sort of childlike but also experimenting. Like with this one, clearly the thighs aren't child size, and the butt and the hips and everything. So just working on seeing what works, what doesn't. I kind of like this thumb, this arm. That's okay, but I'm not so happy with the face. Maybe it feels a bit out of perspective, and then this transition feels like her rib cage is too small. Just the rib cage pushes right into the hips, which I don't like that. And then the foreshortening is off. The perspective, the camera, and everything feels off. And for this one too, the camera definitely feels off. This body doesn't look like it has much volume. It kind of looks flat here. So yeah, it's something where I probably didn't notice it at the time, and that sucks that you can't just notice everything at the time, because then you could just keep fixing your drawings and they wouldn't look bad. But Um, I have a big problem with not seeing my mistakes until much later, and then I just hate everything. These shoes, I like this part. Comes out like that, but I don't really like the bottom part too much. Okay, so more figure drawing. Yeah, as I said, I was trying to do more figures, and at this point I was thinking less about making sure the curves are, perfect, because I've started to incorporate that where I'm using less straight lines. So I was thinking more about just trying to get the figure down more realistically, because something I've been learning over time is just that realism is very important to go to, and then go to stylization, then go back to realism, because you want to always, I mean, in my view, you want to have a relationship between how far you push things and then what those things are based off. And I think if you don't know enough reality, your stylization gets pretty limited, or else it gets very disconnected from reality in a way, like it's too abstract and it's not actually as cool. So I'm not saying at this point I've got it, nor do I have it now even, but it is something where the more you know, the more you have to play with and exaggerate. For instance, like the underside of the jaw is kind of a hard thing to draw at times. So you learn how that works in reality, and then you can stylize it to a few lines or something. With the hair, it's not perfect, but trying to see things, that doesn't make any sense. But see the physics behind things. And here I was experimenting with like tall, which I drew them tall first, and then I just squeezed them down to make them wide. And I was wondering which one I prefer, because for a while I was going with this very short, wide, and chunky style. And then I also like tall things, so I guess I like anything as long as it's pushed. I'm not a huge fan of keeping things very perfect, or standard, I would say is a better word. So I couldn't decide. Okay, so more figure drawings. I used to struggle a lot with the back, and I still kind of do, and I got a lot of confusion about this area in particular, and it helped to think of it kind of like the front, where in the front, you see how the pecs and the shoulder overlap the arm? Well, in the back, it kind of works that way too, with the lats and then the deltoid, and which is the same thing, shoulder, and then the triceps come out, and then you have the infraspinatus and teres major, teres minor, and stuff. But so just thinking about this overlap, and the idea is you want to get this overlap and not the other one, where this, like, you see how the back is overlapping the arm because the arm is more in front? Yeah, you want that, and not like the arm overlapping the back too much unless the arm is pushed back. Like in this case, where the arm is pushed back. I hope that makes sense. Perhaps this is extremely obvious, but it's just something I kept getting wrong for a very long time. So working on, more stylization, but here's like super simple. And then I guess I was switching because these look quite different. I used a different brush, and it looks like the feeling is different as well, as does this. Looks like a more abstract. Definitely switched at some point. This is I read it as some kind of creature. When this is the eye, this is the mouth, this is like a beak, nose thing. I'm not sure if it's easy to read or not. But anyway, here I was returning to the world of Wraith. Wraith is a thing where I kind of got stuck with the story, and I've had this before with stories, particularly Affinity, where I get stuck, and I try to not worry about it too much, and I don't want to rush it. I don't want to just I'll come up with an okay solution. Rather, I like to let my stories ferment in a way. So just like take time to let the problem simmer in your mind until at some point you receive some kind of intuitive answer. Maybe that's terrible advice, but it really does work for me, and it usually gives me much better results than when I come up with a forced solution to a story thing. So anyway, all that is to say why I'm not really working on Wraith much. But here I am, just trying. Don't really like this view, but it's still kind of cool. Still kind of like Naha. And yeah. And then here, I was working on more stylized stuff, trying to see, well, what if I use very fat marks for this, using more of the side of the pencil, so to speak, because it's still digital. It's an Apple Pencil, but yeah, just to get this type of shading and what that looks like, playing around with faces as well. So chances are I was feeling fairly burnt out, because I usually default to faces when I'm feeling kind of burnt out. This guy's kind of gross. Okay, back to figure drawing. So, man, I did some figures, and then what I think I did, let me just check to see if that's what I did. Yeah, what I did was I took some figures from here and I moved them to the side. So first I did the figure drawings as normal, just 90-second figure drawings. They actually take more like 70 seconds, sorry, not 20 seconds, because I lose 20 seconds in making a new layer, scaling them, putting them on in the right spot, and then making another layer and then drawing again. But it's fine. Let's call it 90 seconds. So for instance, this one I took, and then I brought that one here, and then on this page I just took a bunch of these, and then I drew over them on a new layer as if I was doing it from imagination. And this was just the original sketch, so I don't have the original reference. So see, like this one, just brought that here, but then I was just trying to draw like an imagination character on top, and I found actually that really seemed to help a lot, and it seemed to cement the things I was learning much more, and it made it so, because I had done the figure drawings in the same day, I still sort of had a very light feeling of what the model was doing. So in some areas where things aren't quite so defined, let's say this head, for instance, this is very, not great, but anyway, it's very undefined. I could kind of remember a bit of, well, I think the model was like looking over her shoulder, so then I would draw like that. Of course, I changed the faces and I tried to stylize things a bit, but overall I thought that was a very good exercise to do. And then here I was thinking more about style again, trying to stylize the female and male form, and I felt like the hands and feet were okay, but they weren't perfectly stylized well. Like I was getting much better with the body. You can see the torso. Well, this to me anyway feels like pretty nicely stylized. I like how I'm not exaggerating the abs too much. There's just areas that are more defined and less defined, so I kind of defined the serratus, which it doesn't really make sense, but it looked better to me to do it that way. Whereas, for instance, with the legs, I didn't give him all the definition in the legs, in like the vastus lateralis and vastus medialis and rectus femoris or whatever. Didn't want to exaggerate those or really even almost include them. So what I noticed is also, the relationship between, it's not something I just noticed, I've known this for a while, but just trying to see the relationship between hands and feet and what are the same thing. So like, well, they're kind of similar where like you get this part and then you get this. So these on the side, the wrist is like the ankle of the hand, and then the top of the palm is like similar with that. Then you'd have the heel of the hand, which is the heel of the foot, so those are the same. And just the areas, I think thinking of these things kind of makes it easier to draw them. I am simplifying the fingers a lot. So for instance, here you have like 2 sections for the thumb, but you really would have 3 sections for the finger. So here there's another knuckle, but I didn't include that, and that's something I picked up from, I think, Alvin Lee. He was doing that, where he was simplifying the finger as if it's just 2 joints instead of 3, and it kind of works. Then I was trying to do hands that were masculine and hands that were feminine, then feet that were masculine and feet that were feminine, because it felt like that was something that is important to get across, like the difference. And if you don't, it feels like your style is not pushed far enough. So then I went back to figure drawings and getting... these feel like they've got a bit more energy in them, at least. So that's something. I really wish we could control when we would have our inspiration or energy or whatnot, like our good days. I think even if I knew I would be having bad days, I would plan it so the bad days are at certain times, and then when I really need it, it's like, okay, I really need a good day right now. I'll use up one of my good days. That would be nice. Yeah, so here I added more detail in the abs, and I don't think it works too well, but this body in general just looks very stiff. Some Catwoman stuff. I'm not really happy with the gesture in this. Nah. And this guy's cool though, I think. Anyway. Pretty hard on myself, but it looks bad to me. Afraid it looks bad to everyone else. I don't know. So here, tried to draw Kay because I haven't drawn her in a while. The body's kind of feels wonky. Feels like things are kind of shifted with the shoulders. Not quite in the right spot. But whatever, it's, just something trying to draw. Same character. Here I wanted to draw a character with their mouth open and kind of see how little you can change things with the jaw to make it look like it's opening. And I've got that anime thing where the mouth is in sort of a 3/4 view, whereas the eye's in a profile view. But it's always interesting to me how it works. Like, it's always been fine. I've never felt that's really odd. I'm sure it is to a lot of people, but to me personally, it's never been like a really bad thing that, oh, you've got a face in profile and the mouth in 3/4. I wonder if the Egyptians felt that way with their hieroglyphics, with their sideways side profile people with the front view eyes. Maybe it just looked fine to them. And this is... I don't like the wonkiness of this, but I think it's funny as a story. She's like, this one's butt is here, and then this one's... It's kind of hard to read, but I just think this is a funny gesture. More like a cool face. I don't know. And a turtle-like creature, maybe. And the side of the head, stylization, trying to think of the temple area, and then the what is this called? The zygomatic arch. That's it. And I like this girl and this one. So I'm really focusing on how much I can shrink this eye, this distant eye. And usually it's more than I think I can. See, like, this doesn't even properly line up in terms of just rules. Like, if you carried this over in perspective, this eye would probably end more here, but it still can kind of work Again, it's kind of like this mouth where it doesn't make sense, but it will still look okay. And I think there's a lot of that in drawing where you kind of have to find stuff that will be accepted, although you may not know it at the time that it's okay. Because certain things you can push, but then they look broken, and other things you can push and they look okay. Speaking of broken, this page, this entire page is just busted. Oh boy. Oh no. Like this kind of looks okay. I think this one is okay. It manages to feel like, all right, that's just like stylized and stuff. I'm not feeling the top of the head or the volume, the structure of this cranium, so that's a negative. But the rest are so much worse that it's even these ones. I really don't. I feel like I didn't have a good day, but I think I was trying dry ink for this. Yeah, looks like. And then working on different hairstyles. Yeah, very bad. But I guess you have to go through the bad experiments as well. This one's much better. So, I had a really bad day when I really wasn't happy with anything I was doing, and then this, that's just stuff from imagination as well. But I much prefer it. I like this girl, maybe the hand isn't perfect. I like the thinness in this sword. Hilt, is that it? The handle? Not sure. But yeah, I like that. I like this girl. I like this person. I guess it's like a Valkyrie. Yeah. Funny expressions. This foreshortening seems better than the other ones. I like how this leg goes back in space. So yeah, okay. So you can have a bad day and then it's not every day. I wish the good days lasted longer though. Yeah, so here I had taken this girl and I drew her first, and then I copied her, moved her over, and I lowered the opacity, and then I just drew the skeleton inside. So this should match up to this. And it's funny how it still looks like the skeleton has a lot of attitude. Like if I just saw this, the eye socket is humongous. Jesus. But I can't say it works because perhaps it's a bit too much. It's a bit broken. But in general, the information is sort of there, I think. And then I like these type of, I don't even know what they're called. Headdress? Would it be a headdress? I don't know. Flavia thinks of it as like trash cans. Like wearing trash cans on their head. But I don't know, I think it's cool. And this page is maybe not as good. I'm just trying to push things in weird ways and keep these eyes, which more than anything is an experiment to see, like, does that actually work? Can we do that? And also, I was trying to block in things with just this one value and make the eyes themselves connected, so the eyelashes and the iris itself is one value, so right, so connected. And it's okay. I mean, I know I've seen this style done before, especially in the Moya thing. You can see the style where you combine the eyelashes and the iris and pupil together. It's okay. More figure drawing. So Don't know if there's anything to say about that. Just a useful exercise. And I drew this person just randomly, again trying to do that thing where I spend more time on sort of cleaning it up, and I connected the eye thing. Flavia really liked it, so I kept doing it. But then I thought it's a bit stiff, and I wondered if maybe cleaning up stuff is just not the best thing for me because I lose so much, or maybe there's a better way to clean up. So I started working on Kay again. I could never remember her costume, so that's why her costume always changes, because I did her costume, but it was a long time ago, and then I kind of forgot it, but also, I don't know, sometimes it just felt like it was too complicated. And it's not that I was going to change her costume and that I'm looking for a new costume or anything. It was more just I was too lazy to look up the reference. But I do remember kind of how to draw her face, so not good. I know, I'm ashamed of myself as well. So just playing around with different things. And then I drew her as a regular waitress, like just a modern day waitress, because I was thinking about, figure drawing and stuff, and how it's easier to draw figures that exist in the real world, but with my stories and my characters, often they're a bit of a escape from reality. But because of that, because I'm trying so hard to get away from anything that exists in the real world, the characters aren't relatable, and the stories are a bit hard to build. So bringing reality back can be a big help when you're drawing. And I guess that was a theme for this period. It's just, how much you need to kind of focus on reality. So I tried drawing Kate again, and I felt like I wasn't really happy with, well, first of all, this I don't like at all. I don't like this outfit for her. It doesn't fit her character or anything. I was just playing around with different stuff. But particularly that idea of playing with reality, like making her look more like a real person. And obviously she doesn't properly look like a person, but I was thinking about maybe giving her a ponytail, changing her hair up a bit. Because if I gave her a ponytail, then when she'd move around, that would show her movement. I think I mentioned this with Wraith. He has a scarf primarily for that reason. But it just didn't feel iconic enough. I drew this one, and I kind of like this underboob type thing. So I thought, okay, maybe I can revisit Kay. And with all the things I learned from working on Wraith characters, and then just also based on, how far I've come in my own understanding, could I do a better job? So I did this one, and thought, okay, that's kind of cool. I gave her these wing type things because I did a design for Inari in Wraith, who's the daughter of the goddess of death, the deva of death, Nahia. And she had these wing-like things, and I liked it a lot because it shows movement. Again, it was like that ponytail idea, because without her hair, she doesn't feel like Kay. It's too iconic of a thing, I feel like, that I made to change it and have her look the same. So I thought, okay, let's do that. Let's change it so she has these like wing thingies. And I wasn't really happy with the design 100%, but I thought it was kind of interesting. And then I thought of and I was thinking about like making it simple for a comic. Like maybe I would try doing the K comic. So what happened with the first K idea when I was working on Space Waitress K is she was supposed to be a mascot. That was just kind of the idea behind her. A friend of mine suggested I make a mascot for DeviantArt and YouTube, so people would kind of know my work based off a character. And then after I did that, people were kind of expecting a comic. And I didn't plan for that. I didn't think like, yeah, I'm making a comic. I just thought, no, I'm making a mascot, and that's just what it was supposed to be. So when they started thinking about a comic, I thought, okay, I guess I should. And then I was thinking of stories, and I came up with a very light story. I wanted to keep it light and humorous, but then I started thinking about who Kay is, and she was very hard to understand. And as I discovered more, and when I say discovered, it kind of is that. So I'll think about the character, and I'll find things that stick. Like, you can kind of think about the person as a a person that already exists. And rather than you creating a character, you're learning about a character that already exists. I imagine it's kind of like having a kid, where your kid, if you just have a kid, I'm just speaking without experience, but I think this is how it works, where you kind of learn as they grow up who they are. And I think that way about my own characters, that I don't necessarily know them, but I do know that all your characters, whoever you create, they're always a reflection of something within you, whether it's an experience of someone in your life or yourself. So I kept an eye on that. And when I started discovering more about Kay, I found the story got really, really dark. But it got really dark, and yet I kind of felt like, yes, that is her story. That feels right. That feels authentic. But it wasn't the story I wanted to tell. It wasn't light. It wasn't easy. It wasn't nice. So I felt bad. Like, okay, I can't do this story. It's too dark. It made me depressed. And so I decided I'm gonna just leave Kay for a while. And after it's been a few years, so I thought, okay, let's revisit her now. Let's see if I can make it light and not screw it up. And so I started with this, and then I had the idea of Kay having multiple, kind of like multiple personalities, I guess, because I do. And most of my characters kind of gravitate towards that, especially the main character. And then I realized, well, if your characters are based off yourself in some way, then it makes sense that my characters would all have broken brains, because I have a broken brain. And that's how I understand things. So for me, everything is very dissociated. And so I thought about that with Kay, that maybe Kay has a lot of dissociation. And so I thought of these 4 modes where she's the waitress Kay, and that's when she's very, cheerful and nice and friendly. Then she's the huntress, which is this version of Kay when she's in her outfit, and that's when she's very confident, very determined, rational, but not very emotional. And there's the butcher, who is the one that does the getting ingredients. If you're not familiar with Space Waitress Kay at all as a story, the premise is that she works at a diner in space, and they collect ingredients that they then turn into food, but the ingredients are actually other sentient beings. So that was the original story. And so there's that, and then there's that Comfy Kay, which is when she's by herself and she's just sort of more herself. So I feel like the waitress is how she acts when she's around other people. It's the things she wants people to see her as, but the waitress is also the type of person who wants to make other people happy, who wants to be liked, who wants to please people. The huntress is when she's by herself and she needs to perform. So I imagine if she was taking tests or anything, she would be more like the huntress, because that's the strong, confident version. Then the butcher is a crazy part, and we'll talk about that later. And then the comfy one is the sort of antisocial, what she would be like. But the thing is, with people who dissociate, all the parts are sort of the parts of normal people anyway. Like, most people would have parts of themselves that want to be more social, and then other parts that kind of want to be more alone and maybe even antisocial. So with people who dissociate a lot, those things are just more pronounced, and they're a bit more off in a way, because the parts may not talk, so you don't get a full personality. You get spikes of different personalities. And I thought about Kay's ship, and I drew this. It's based off a diamond. You can see there's tons of diamonds. If you look in the Kay design, you'll just see diamonds and diamonds, and everywhere is diamonds. So yeah, this is like the cockpit, and That's what it looks like from the side, from the front, back, and 3/4. And I call it the Sparrow. And yeah, that's her ship. And then I wasn't really happy with the design of her, and I tried a bunch of different things. So I tried no underboob and then some underboob, because I like this one with the underboob that I mentioned. I tried that, tried different things, and different markings for the lower region. Do I expose her midriff or not? And wasn't sure what to pick. Flavia, I ran it by Flavia, and she suggested some changes, and then I tried to incorporate those. So for instance, like maybe I don't show these areas and I just let it be one flat thing, because if you look at this design, for instance, your eye goes down and then it kind of gets stuck on this because this is like a area of interest, of contrast, and then it goes, so it makes it a bit too detailed, whereas this, because it's more streamlined, your eye tends to go straight up again. Here I was thinking of maybe what Comfy K looks like. Thought about giving K baggy pants, and I kind of like this one. I thought this works. It's very simple, but because I have this idea of her inhabiting these 4 distinct modes, then it can actually be okay to make a design that is a bit more subdued and not so crazy. So in normal design, what you would probably do is you want to make the character stand out. So maybe I would give this character like a very yellow vest or something to really pop that out and make you know this is the main character. Whereas this, her clothing, her outfit is kind of similar to her skin tone in color, and then it's just her hair that stands out. But I thought that really worked because that's showing she is an antisocial person. She's not trying to stand out. She's not trying to be anything special. She's just wearing normal, comfy clothes. Whereas here, she's, wearing high heels and, very impractical clothing, but very flashy, very action and, aggressive in a way with all spikes everywhere. I thought of how she swoops down and then lands. And then I thought about different characters because I wanted different characters in the story. So this is when it kind of took off, where I was really thinking about, I can let's play with this world. I haven't been in this world for a while. So who inhabits it? So I made Wasso because I wanted a character like Tommy Wiseau from The Room, and I thought about what he felt like to me, and he felt like a slug, like a giant slug. So I made Wasso a giant space slug, and I gave him like the silver or chrome football. I gave him hair, but actually this hair is a wig. And I give him a little buddy called Grog, who is like his best friend. So this would be the Greg Sestero to the Tommy Wiseau. And I think Wasso, I thought of him calling him like, Groggy Poo, little Groglet, or something like that. And yeah. Then here I thought of I wanted a main character as a villain who, not a main character, but like a main villain who is someone who kind of like, you have the Joker and you have Batman. They feel equal. But I wanted someone for K, and I had to think of what would I want? And I thought of doing sort of an incel type person. I thought about characters people like sort of Elliot Rogers, just someone who's he has a motive. He's got a chip on his shoulder in a way, and he's very entitled, but maybe somewhat intelligent, and things don't need to be so bad for him as they are, but because of the way he thinks, it turns out bad. But also I wanted him to be formidable. So I think he's like a hacker type, and yeah, there's more that I could explain about it, but I don't want to explain everything because that would defeat the purpose of the story. But anyway, yeah, so I'm kind of happy with his design. I give him like very dark clothes, but I also wanted him to stand out, so I gave him like this pink, which I feel would contrast against Kay's green. And more figure drawings. Just don't want to lose that habit of doing figure drawings. And then this was a commission where people rarely commission me as Psychra to do their characters. So I do commissions on the side, but I don't get a lot doing other people's original characters as myself. So I have other aliases that I draw as, and those get much more work. I think there's definitely something to be said about making a name for yourself and having people associate you as a certain thing and sort of expect certain things. So anyway, so this was cool that I just redesigned a character for this guy, Machines and Monsters, and I think it's okay. So here I was thinking of a concept for the diner, and I wasn't sure if it's going to be like a restaurant and a bar or a diner. Like, should it be more fine dining like or not? And I wanted a name for the meat. So I was thinking of the first thing that immediately came to me when I thought of the name for the meat was Blut. But I knew Blut meant blood in German. And it felt like, I can't call it Blut. But I really liked the name Blut. It felt like it worked. And so I thought, Slut, Blux, Nut, Grub, Foda, Kud, Glub, Glut, Glog. And then eventually I decided, no, I just call it Blut. Ran it by Flavia, and it seemed like there's no reason not to call it this, because if that's a name that feels right, you just go with it. And when you run with things that may be stupid, like they might seem like, well, I shouldn't really call it this, then what happens is it becomes normalized. And this is the same thing with characters and names. I try and tell people when you're trying to come up with a name for your character, do think about it and do try and find what feels right, but don't overthink about it, because the characters the name can work as long as the name fits within the world. It can work. And I figured I needed a crew. So what are the people I need? Well, I thought, well, obviously I need the captain, and that's already been done. That's Arsha. I need Kay, who's a waitress. And I thought I need a chef, and then a couple cooks, and then a few more waitresses. I need a nurse, an engineer, a helmsman, and I thought the engineer can also be the helmsman, and a janitor. So 12 characters and different rooms I needed in this world. And that gave me a lot to work on, because it's like, oh, okay, now I have an idea. And I wrote the female and male just based on kind of feeling of what I wanted. And I didn't know what these characters were. I just put down names. So I thought, well, the chef, he can be called Mub. That seems like a chef's name. And then his cooks, maybe they're twins and they're his nephews. I called them Miz and Maz. And then I was trying to come up with names that were very relatable, but, spelled in such a way that they're kind of different. So it feels like, yeah, still kind of sci-fi, or fantasy, but still real world grounded. So I changed Lucy, so she's spelled like Lucy, and Karen. And Karen's the nurse because she's Karen about people and stuff like that. So this was an idea for Mub, the chef. And I was like, okay, I kind of like it, but let's try something else. And here were the ideas. So I wanted him to be like serious. He's very built. He's got a thick accent, and you can't see his eyes clearly. So first I did this tentacle squid-like version, and I really like this because the tentacles actually cover his eyes, but they have patterns on them which look like eyes. So where the eyes should be, instead you see these patterns. And I figured he would have an eye, but his eye is kind of in there, like he has a beak, and then two tentacles, and then two tentacles that come in the back, and then his eye is like just so he can see through it, but nobody else can see it. It's all in shadow. And I thought about making him more like a goblin, or maybe he's like a hippo. And when I drew this one, I thought, oh, okay, this one seems sort of like what you would expect to see in a Pixar movie. Also came up with a logo for the restaurant, and I call it the Flying Fish. And so I kind of like the logo. And then I came up with like this dragon one and this more otter-like one. And I liked the otter. It also felt kind of like a Pixar movie character, maybe a bit less expected, but the hippo one kind of worked. And then this was the original one where I felt like, well, this is probably my favorite, but this one kind of works more. This feels more like a proper design, I guess. And I showed Bob Meatbag, he liked the hippo, but Flavia liked the tentacle guy a lot more. So, okay, I decided to color them. Red hippo, I don't know, greenish seal type, and then the squid version. And Flavia still really liked the squid. And then I was thinking about making Kate into an RPG Maker game, because I was thinking about comics, and I don't like working on comics, just because it's so much work and it's not an enjoyable process for me. Kind of like animation, it's just not enjoyable. But I seem to, like, I made a few RPG Maker games before, and I have a ton of patience for it, even the more boring things. So I thought, well, maybe I could make it into an RPG Maker game. And then here I solidified bloot as the name for the ingredient. So the meat they collect is called bloot. Made a cleaner design for the Flying Fish restaurant. Lord Foulhole. This is just random, nothing, just, I guess I got tired. And then I was thinking of designs for the diner. So the design is fairly similar to the one I originally had for the Space Waitress case story. And so the face, it's still like a fish shape, and it's still got its prism drive. I wrote Bloot House on it, and I figure it used to be called Arsha's Bloot House, but then it turns into the Flying Fish Diner. And human scale, and showing all the rooms. So you have the diner, the hangar, and this is where Kay's ship, the Sparrow, goes in. This part comes down, it goes like, and then the ship comes out and then flies away. So, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so just bridge, sick bay, supply rooms, crew quarters, a top-down view so you can see how everything is, and some random faces. And so back to more characters, because having characters to work on is such a big difference. Like, you could see how before I was just drawing random stuff, and I did this as well when I did Wraith. I had a bunch of characters to design, and I had a purpose, and everything was going a lot more smoothly. And then I kind of finished all the designs, and I felt pretty lost, and I started doing the story, and then it kind of worked for a while, but then again, once I got stuck, then I was lost, and then I just ended up doing other stuff. So now that I have a story again to work on and characters that need to be designed, I've got a lot more energy. So these are Miz and Maz. They're the teenage kids of Mub, or nephews, sorry, of Mub. And I thought, well, they need an outfit that kind of is lame, but shows they're a cook, but sort of still related. And I thought they have tentacles instead of, like, they don't have feet, they just have tentacles, but they wear shoes, and the shoes are kind of rigid, so it makes it look like they have feet, but they don't really. And I wanted to design the waitress outfit, so I just made this person as a random, like a human, just so I have a thing to make an outfit for. It's not supposed to be a character. She's not a character in Space Waitress case, just a random person, but I kind of like how she looks. And yeah, helped me design the outfit. Tried to make some kind of different ribbony thing. And then here's Mora. She's called Miura, but at this point I had called her Mora. And He's one of the waitresses who's very shy and kind and gentle. She admires Kay, and she's a little bit slow. At least that was her at this point. She's changed a little bit since then. But I still think her design works just fine. I like the colors. I like how the green goes against the orange. And that's kind of a thing I tried to do, is find a main color. So in this case, orange. And then find complementary colors for everything that you don't want to stand out too much. So I don't want her hair to stand out too much, so I made it red because it's close to orange. But I do want her eyes to stand out, so I made them green, which would be the complement of, or the, yeah, complement of red. But if I made her skin red and her eyes green, that's a bit too much contrast, so I made the eyes sort of a yellowish green, like it's got some yellow in this green. Like it's not a super blue green, it's a more yellowy green. And so that's a bit closer to orange, so it won't stand out too much and you'll still get an appealing design. And the same thing with this, like her skin, kind of like this stands out because it's pink, but it sort of matches her skin with her lips as well. But then her eyes are this blue, which really stands out. So that creates a focal point, the interest, and usually you want them to be focused at the face. So I made Kay's waitress design, and I figured maybe she ties her hair back, and one of her hair strands still comes up, and that will still keep the feeling of her hair when it's in her normal form. And then I gave her the yellow ribbon and apron to match her eyes. And she wears long sleeves, unlike the other waitresses, because she's got like all these scars from cutting herself. And so yeah, that's the thing. And sometimes she wears, I imagine she wears her hair normally, like how she used to. But mostly in her waitress form, she ties her hair back, I think. And here's the nurse, Karen. I wanted Karen to be somewhat intelligent looking, but kind of creepy as well. So she's supposed to take care of you, but I think I made her like a snake kind of, or a reptile, because I wanted it to feel sort of scary, like a bit creepy, and made her skin kind of look like she's dead. Made her sclera a different color, just to create some contrast between the feeling of, oh, you're a nurse, you're here to help, and sort of, oh, but you've also got certain qualities that are slightly scary. So that was the idea behind that. This was for another commission I got, and just a random drawing thing. I was trying to play around with hatching. I don't think it worked well, but anyway, it was just a thing. I don't enjoy cross-hatching or hatching in general. I think it, like, certain artists can do a really good job where they make it look awesome, but for me, not really so good at it. Here was I wasn't feeling so great, and I drew kind of this 2-page thing, but I kind of like it. It feels very expressive, and I like the energy of it, and it kind of does a good job of displaying how I was feeling at the time. So for me, this is kind of successful. More figure drawing, and then I was thinking of Nart. So Nart is based off this character in a TV show called True Blood, and the character is called Lafayette. And I think he's like a cook or a waiter or something in the show, I forget, but when I met Flavia, she made me watch True Blood. So I thought, okay, I'll make him similar in a way. So I wanted him to be gay, first of all, and I also wasn't sure what he would be, like a robot, didn't really like it. Kind of like the idea of a bird, because the bird feels like it would be vain and pruning itself and stuff. And yeah, so that was kind of the basis. I thought it's okay to start with something very simple and then let the character emerge. In fact, that's kind of the way I'm working off this, is I'm thinking of very easy, obvious answers to, like, oh, what should you make the character? Oh, make him a blue bird. Okay. make him a bluebird, but then letting the character evolve from there and change and grow. So that definitely happened with Nart. So here, just random figures. Nothing really too special. Yeah. And playing more with this cleaning up thing where I'm, using one value to isolate areas, and then this person's head and everything fell apart. Just playing with proportions, trying to push things. And I like this one, even though it's very tall. Has kind of an interesting proportion to it, I think works. And so I was playing around with that more, like stretching the characters, seeing how tall I could make them and yet still have similar heads and have the heads work, which I'm not sure how well that works, but anyway, it is what it is. And some more drawings, and these ones are just from imagination, but then these ones are these four are referenced, I believe. Actually, I'm not sure if this one is, maybe, but then I heavily stylized them. So yeah, next month we'll be really focusing a lot on Space Waitress K and developing the characters, developing the story, and yeah, it's pretty exciting. So I hope you stick around for that, and I hope this helped, and thanks for watching.